You deposit $500 in an index fund and suffer 10 years of flat returns despite buying shares every month. You reach year 11 and collect more annual profit from that single original deposit than from 10 years of subsequent contributions. I calculate the exact crossover date and tally the $156,000 penalty you pay for waiting. You can calculate the exact balance where you earn more cash from your portfolio than your monthly deposits. If you invest $300 every month, that crossover point hits $51,400. You get this figure using basic arithmetic on a napkin. Most people reach this balance in year 10 of investing. Most people also stop contributing during that exact year. Investors quit the moment they earn more income from their investments than their paychecks. You might find this statement harsh. I will prove the math next. Lisa is 28 years old and works in operations. She takes home $58,000 a year after taxes. Paying rent, buying groceries, maintaining a car, and covering a phone bill leaves her with $400 of flexible cash every month. She invests $300 of that money into a broad market index fund and lives on the remaining $100. She ignores market timing and refuses to pick individual stocks. She deposits the same $300 into the same fund month after month. We will freeze several variables to keep the mathematics transparent. Lisa keeps her operations job and her $58,000 salary. She maintains her $300 monthly contribution to the broad market index. We apply a 7% real return to her investments. The word real defines actual purchasing power. The S&P 500 generates a historical 10% annual return before factoring in inflation. Inflation destroys 3% of purchasing power every year. Subtracting the inflation loss leaves a 7% gain. This 7% represents the tangible growth that buys a bigger house, extra groceries, and more life. We will use this honest 7% figure throughout our 30-year window and ignore the flashy 10% headline number. Locking these parameters leaves only one element free to change year over year. The account balance shifts while everything else stays rigid. Remember that single moving variable because it drives the entire concept. You picture your savings growing along a straight line. You drop $300 into an account each month to yield $3,600 a year. You accumulate $36,000 over a decade. You reach $72,000 after 20 years. You secure $108,000 after 30 years. We call this path the contribution line. You build this wealth by stacking deposits one step at a time. Your brain latches onto this math, yet the assumption hides a flaw. Human cognition defaults to linear projections. You deposit $300 and expect $300 of progress. You picture a smooth ramp climbing at a constant angle. Compounding bypasses constant angles and follows a new shape. Your money forms a curve that starts horizontal before arcing into a steep climb. The compounding curve stays flush against your flat contribution line during the early years. The two paths appear identical on a graph. This visual overlap sets a trap. Investors abandon their accounts because the balance seems flat. The compounding curve separates from the linear path once discouraged savers quit. Lisa joins the ranks of discouraged savers, spending her first 10 years building wealth and facing peak frustration. 12 months of strict budgeting yields a $3,600 personal contribution and $118 in market returns. She looks at the math and feels disappointed. She sacrificed weekend trips for an entire year to secure a triple-digit return. 3 years into the process, her annual market growth reaches $700. This $60 monthly return vanishes beside the $300 she transfers from her checking account each month. She earns a few grocery trips from the stock market while automatic transfers drain her checking account. Half a decade later, Lisa has deposited $18,000. Her account balance sits at $21,500. The annual investment profit hits $1,300, breaking down to $100 monthly. She outpaces inflation, yet the absolute dollar amount fails to excite her. Compound interest pays her utility bills, leaving the heavy lifting to bi-weekly payroll deductions. 10 full years pass. Her direct paycheck deposits total $36,000. The account value climbs to $52,000. Her investments generated $16,000 over the entire 10-year span. Her investment earnings for the 10th year reached $3,400, falling short of her $3,600 personal contribution for that same year. Her portfolio yields a 4-digit annual return, yet her manual savings outpace the growth. Lisa reviews these figures at her kitchen table. She produced $36,000 in personal savings and $16,000 in market gains over a decade of effort. Her friends would label her strategy timid if she had spent those same years gambling on speculative tech companies. Most investors abandon their accounts at this precise milestone. They leave their money days before the compounding curve accelerates upward. Discouraged savers walk away from the exact spot where exponential math takes over. You build a foundation for exponential math. You calculate returns based on the money sitting in the account, bypassing your monthly deposits. You experience an early flatline determined by the size of your existing balance, dismissing bad luck or poor market conditions. You feed compound growth using your existing balance. You earn $700 from a 7% return on a $10,000 starting point. Apply that identical 7% rate to $50,000 and you collect $3,500. Push the balance to $250,000 and you earn $17,500 from that same 7% return. You keep the percentage constant while scaling the dollar amounts with the total pile size. You start year one with a tiny balance, yielding minimal purchasing power. You watch the math shift over time. You grow your account value, yielding a larger return. You reinvest those profits, pushing the baseline higher for the following 12 months. You experience compounding returns alongside compounding speed. Consider the trajectory of Lisa. She reaches year 20 and watches her account grow by $10,000. Fast forward to year 30, and she receives a $24,000 deposit from that same 7% market return. She pockets an extra $14,000 annually because she stayed invested for 10 additional years. She shifts her annual profits from a steady climb into rapid acceleration. We can map the exact crossover point for this acceleration using napkin math. Calculate the account size where 1 year of market growth equals your total annual deposit. Lisa makes annual deposits of $3,600 and earns a 7% return. Setting these two values equal creates an equation. We multiply the unknown balance by 7% and set the result to $3,600. Dividing the deposit amount by the percentage return yields $51,429. This specific dollar amount represents the critical tipping point. You need fresh paycheck deposits to drive growth when your account total stays under this threshold. You generate larger annual gains from compounding interest once your balance exceeds this figure. You find this threshold by dividing your yearly contribution by your expected return rate. Altering your deposit size or expected return shifts this target number. Your unique personal financial details guarantee a different crossover threshold than Lisa's. Think about year 10 for Lisa. She reaches the $51,000 milestone during that specific year. She sat at her kitchen table with a calculator, considering giving up. Lisa hit the precise mathematical threshold during the exact moment she felt the strongest urge to stop. People abandoning their plans at year 10 walk away one step before the massive reward kicks in. Savers receive the financial payoff after surviving the most difficult testing phase. We build a detailed map using this specific crossover number. Everyone uses identical math at varying scales for each step. New savers enter the initial accumulation phase during step 1. They maintain a balance under the $51,400 mark. These individuals build more wealth through direct deposits than through investment returns. Beginners view the process as traditional saving. They see zero compound interest during this time. Account holders keep their money in this initial phase for the full 10 years. You reach the exact crossover point at $51,400 during step 2. You watch investment returns match your annual deposit amount. We watch our portfolios generate meaningful independent growth. We experience the massive acceleration phase during step 3. You apply the same equation to find the point where market gains equal 5 times your contribution. Savers multiply the crossover threshold by 5 to hit this target, reaching the $257,000 mark. They see investment returns equal 5 times their annual deposit. Individuals earn an $18,000 yearly gain from a 7% return on $257,000. They watch the $18,000 gain overshadow their $3,600 annual deposit. Savers see their manual contributions shrink to mathematical insignificance. They let their investments drive the growth while they observe. Everyone applies the same underlying math across all 3 phases. Most investors ignore these distinct stages. They fail to identify their current phase or calculate the distance to the next milestone. Once you pinpoint your exact phase, you gain a distinct advantage through early action. You must redefine the concept of starting. Lisa deposits identical bills into her account. Each bill possesses a distinct value. A single bill she deposits during year 1 sits in the market for 30 full years. At a 7% return, that single bill becomes $8 by her retirement date. Consider a bill she deposits during her final month. This late deposit possesses zero time to multiply. It remains a single dollar when she closes the account. Both bills belong to the exact same mutual fund managed by the exact same investor. The early bill stays invested for 3 decades. The late bill shows zero growth. Multiply this effect across larger sums. Lisa deposits $18,000 during her initial 5 years. That early capital becomes $123,000 by year 30. She deposits $54,000 over her final 15 years. This later capital represents 3 times her initial investment. This massive later sum totals $95,000 by year 30. She earns more wealth from her early $18,000 than her later $54,000. Lisa earns more wealth from her initial 5 years of deposits than her final 15 years while utilizing a third of the cash. You benefit more from duration in the market than total volume for each specific bill. You carry the financial weight for your entire future using the cash you deploy in your 20s and early 30s. You increase your total balance with subsequent deposits. You add these later deposits to a financial marathon where the early runners cross the finish line. To see where typical families land on this track, we examine the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances. This massive national study tracks household wealth. Families under 35 holding a retirement account show a median balance about $18,000. That leaves them stuck on the lowest starter floor. Moving up the age brackets, the 35 to 44 group holds about $45,000. The 45 to 54 cohort reaches $115,000. Families aged 55 to 64 hit the peak saving years right before retirement with a median near $185,000. Focus on that $45,000 figure for the 35 to 44 demographic. That balance sits below the crossover line. A typical family in this age bracket relies on their own contributions because investment returns have not overtaken their deposits. They face a shrinking window of working years to close that gap before retirement arrives. Those median numbers exclude a massive portion of the population. The Federal Reserve only surveys families who own a retirement account. Almost half of all American families lack an account. Those households possess zero investments generating compound interest. They have no crossover line to chase. We cannot blame this math on a lack of personal discipline. Millions of workers funnel real paychecks into legitimate investment accounts every single month. The compounding effect fails to overtake their manual contributions before they retire. Consider Lisa at the 10-year mark as her financial journey branches into 2 distinct paths. In the first scenario, Lisa halts her monthly $300 deposits. A broken car and a busy schedule make the routine feel futile following 10 years of slow progress. She leaves her existing balance invested and walks away from the daily savings habit. The second scenario demands zero additional effort from her. Lisa maintains her standard $300 monthly transfer into the identical index fund without adopting any extreme budgeting measures. 2 full decades later, the first Lisa holds a sum near $210,000. That initial $52,000 balance produced returns on its own, yielding a respectable final number. The second Lisa reaches a total of $366,000 over the exact same timeframe. Maintaining the automatic transfers without pausing them creates a massive $156,000 difference in her final wealth. This extra capital required no additional overtime, higher salary, or superior stock picks. She secured the extra cash by maintaining her routine during the exact year her efforts started gaining traction. Lisa experiences the 11 to 20-year window as the exact period where her early patience yields tangible rewards. By year 15, her account value crosses $95,000. The market generates around $6,300 in annual returns, eclipsing her $3,600 yearly out-of-pocket input for good. Market gains outpace her manual deposits every subsequent year without relinquishing the top spot. At the 20-year milestone, her account holds near $156,000 while the market adds $10,400 in growth. Those passive gains equal triple her personal cash injections. Moving to year 25, the total reaches $243,000, sitting 1 year away from explosive exponential growth. Lisa managed to triple her account value across the previous 10-year span. The underlying 7% return rate remained static, yet the sheer size of her principal allowed that standard percentage to generate massive absolute dollar figures. Identical interest rates, identical investment vehicles, and identical monthly deposits combine with a larger starting principal to produce the ultimate mathematical advantage. You place the heaviest compounding financial load on your earliest investments. You create a massive hidden wealth expense for your future by postponing your first deposit. Picture Lisa deciding to begin at age 29 in place of 28. She maintains an identical $300 monthly contribution and 7% return. She reaches the same target date. Lisa loses $28,000 from her final balance following that 12-month pause. She bypassed $3,600 in total deposits during that skipped year. You face a $28,000 penalty for that single missed year. You forfeit a sum approaching 8 times the cash you withheld. You deny those initial skipped dollars the maximum possible time to multiply. You experience temporary portfolio drops during stock market crashes. You destroy your long-term wealth by sitting on the sidelines for your first 12 months. This compounding strategy breaks down when you pull your cash out before year 20. Imagine you need a down payment for a house at year 12. You cash out your account holding $67,000. You grab the absolute floor of the growth phase and miss the massive spike waiting at the top. You need decades for the math to work, and you shatter the formula when you withdraw your cash ahead of schedule. Fund managers sabotage your progress with high management fees. You might think an expense ratio of 1% seems tiny on paper. Fund managers use that single percentage point to steal $65,000 from Lisa over 30 years. Fund managers pocket that cash and bury the loss inside a dense quarterly statement she ignores. You face another major roadblock when market returns underperform. Assume investors see a 5% average return in place of 7%. You see the crossover threshold rise to $72,000. Lisa ends her 30-year run with $250,000 in place of $366,000. You watch your chart maintain its basic shape while the growth slope flattens out and stalls. You experience the vertical climb at a much later date, often pushing past standard retirement age and bleeding into your 70s. You might look at a spreadsheet and think the math for older beginners looks forgiving, but the actual numbers destroy your monthly budget. Suppose Lisa waits until age 43 and tries to fix the problem by investing $600 every month. She waits 15 years and finds her account sitting at $190,000. She misses the entire exponential phase before she retires. She must invest that same $600 each month for 22 consecutive years to match her 28-year-old self. She contributes $155,000 of her own paycheck to reach a milestone the early starter achieved by saving $108,000. You must contribute extra cash when you wait because you cannot buy back the lost years. You buy back lost time by writing larger checks from your monthly paycheck. You will notice real market returns fail to follow a neat, predictable upward line. You will not see a clean 7% gain every January. Investors use that figure to represent a long-term average. You might watch your portfolio surge 20% one year and drop 15% the next year. You will see the specific sequence of those up and down years alter your final balance. Experiencing a few terrible years in the time before retirement will wreck your plans and force you to work another decade. You smooth out these wild swings by holding broad index funds over several decades of investing. You reach the fundamental crossover point on schedule and flip your account from a savings bucket into a wealth engine. You keep your destination fixed even when your daily balance bounces. Lisa reaches year 30 with her destination intact. She deposited $108,000 from her paychecks over those 3 decades. She built an account balance of $366,000. Her investments generated $24,500 in gains during that final year. Her investments generated returns approaching 7 times her annual contribution in that single year. That single year of growth surpassed her first decade of market gains combined. Her investments added $118 to her account in year 1. Her investments added $24,500 to her account in year 30. Year 30 produced more than 200 times the dollar growth of year 1. She invested the exact same $300 each month into the same fund, earning the same 7% return. The balance size changed. She applied her 7% return to a massive pile of money, leaving the tiny pile behind. People describe this phase as compounding catching fire. The phrase describes a literal mathematical event and rejects the metaphor. A 7% return on a large balance produces results distinct from a 7% return on a small balance. She watches her account cross a financial threshold and double each decade. The larger principal drives this doubling. You can stop making $300 deposits each month at this stage. Few investors witness this doubling phase in their own portfolios. Most people step off the path 2 decades ahead of schedule. They stare at their initial balances and conclude nothing is happening. The trap ignores your savings rate and your fund selection. Investors fall into the trap by treating their first 10 years of flat growth as proof. You quit before the curve delivers the growth you signed up to achieve. The math hides year 25 results during year 5. The formula keeps future numbers hidden from impatient investors. Successful investors possess no extra intelligence. They hold no superior discipline. They earn no larger salaries than quitters. The successful investors remain on the path for the required duration. They wait until their 7% return has sufficient actual dollars to work on. Locate your personal financial crossover point tonight. Forget the baseline scenario we discussed earlier. That example assumes a standard starting age and average market returns. Your milestone depends on two specific variables. You control your monthly deposit size and your expected annual rate of return. We created a calculator to process those inputs for you. Type in your deposit amount and your target percentage. The calculator produces your crossover balance. It highlights the exact dollar figure where your earnings surpass your principal. It identifies your current compounding rung and estimates the calendar year your investments overtake your total contributions. Test different scenarios with those inputs. Double your monthly deposit amount. Delay your initial investment until age 40 instead of 28. Shift your entire portfolio into a Roth account to eliminate future tax bills on your investment gains. The underlying mathematical curve keeps its identical shape during all these adjustments. The actual crossover point shifts to a new dollar amount. The exact moment your money catches fire lands in a different calendar year. We will calculate those specific alternative scenarios next.